I think we're at like over 200,000 for merch sales. Don't quote me on that because I think it just keeps like bumping up like crazy. But I just wanted to say a huge thank you to the.
I only have one problem. Charlie wanted to date her. Long story short, I was very worried he was going to scare her off.
Sometimes a story doesn't just go viral. It explodes. And the one circulating right now has people asking questions nobody seems able to answer. Because according to online discussions, a whistleblower connected to Turning Point USA came forward with serious allegations involving names like Erika Kirk and Bowyer. And then suddenly, that same person reportedly disappeared. And that timing alone is what has the internet locked in. Because this isn't being framed as random drama, this is being talked about as something much bigger. Claims about money, about donations, about supporters believing they were funding one thing while something else may have been happening behind the scenes. And once those claims started spreading, people didn't just watch. They started digging, connecting moments, revisiting clips, and questioning everything. Especially after videos surfaced showing behavior that many online described as off. And suddenly, what looked like a normal political movement started getting analysed like a full-blown controversy, with users pointing out inconsistencies, changing stories, and patterns that they believed don't add up. And the situation only intensified when discussions about internal tension, alleged audits, and leadership changes began circulating. Because now it wasn't just about one claim. It was about a chain reaction of events that people are trying to piece together in real time. And the biggest question everyone keeps asking is simple but unsettling. Why does it feel like every time something starts coming to light, something else happens to shut it down? And whether this turns out to be misunderstood events, exaggerated internet theories, or something deeper that hasn't been fully explained yet. One thing is clear. This story isn't slowing down, and people are paying attention like never before. To understand why this story is getting so much attention right now, you have to step back and look at the bigger picture. Because Turning Point USA isn't just any group. It's one of the most visible youth-driven political organizations in the country, known for mobilizing young conservatives, hosting large-scale events, and building a massive online presence that reaches millions. And for years, it built its reputation around grassroots activism, strong messaging, and a loyal supporter base that believed they were contributing to a larger movement, not just financially, but ideologically. And within that structure, personalities began to emerge. Figures like Erika Kirk and Bowyer, who, according to online discussions, became increasingly visible in leadership and organizational roles, especially during key moments when the spotlight was already intense. And that visibility is important, because once individuals move from background roles into the public eye, everything they do starts getting analyzed more closely, especially in an environment where political organizations are already under constant scrutiny from both supporters and critics. Now add to that the emotional weight of leadership transitions, internal restructuring, and rapid growth, and you get a situation where even small inconsistencies or rumors can quickly turn into major talking points. And that's exactly what seems to have happened here. Because as the organization expanded and more people got involved, whether as staff, volunteers, or supporters, so did the number of perspectives, experiences, and opinions about what was happening behind the scenes. And while some continued to defend the organization and its leadership, others began raising questions online, pointing to things they felt didn't align with the original mission or expectations. And those questions didn't immediately go viral. But they didn't disappear either. They stayed in the background, building slowly, waiting for a moment that would bring them into the spotlight. And that moment, according to many online, came when allegations started surfacing from someone claiming to have insider knowledge, because once that happened, everything that had been quietly discussed before suddenly became part of a much bigger conversation, pulling in past events, resurfacing old clips, and creating a narrative that people are now trying to understand piece by piece, And that's why this story feels so big right now. Not because it appeared overnight, but because it's been building beneath the surface for a while, and now it's finally getting the attention that turns questions into headlines. Now this is where the story takes a sharp turn, because everything really started escalating when a person, described online as a whistleblower connected to Turning Point USA, allegedly came forward with claims that immediately grabbed attention. And these weren't small accusations either. They were centered around donations, money flow, and whether supporters fully understood where their contributions were going. And according to what's been circulating, the whistleblower suggested that funds believed to support grassroots activism may have been handled in ways that raised serious questions. And the moment those claims hit the internet, people locked in. Because financial transparency is one of those issues that instantly triggers strong reactions, especially when it involves organizations built on trust and public support. And for a brief moment, it looked like this was going to turn into a major internal controversy, with more details coming out, more people speaking up, and more pressure building. But then, something happened that shifted everything. Because according to multiple online discussions, the same whistleblower who brought these claims forward suddenly went quiet, and then reports started spreading that they were missing, and that one detail, whether confirmed or not, completely changed the tone of the story. Because now it wasn't just about money or internal issues anymore. It became about timing, silence, and unanswered questions. And that's what made people start connecting dots even faster. Because when someone speaks out and then disappears from the conversation, right as attention peaks, it naturally raises suspicion, even if there's no verified explanation. And that's exactly what fueled the viral wave, because users began asking why the person stopped posting, why no follow-up statements were made, and whether there was more to the situation than what was visible on the surface. And as those questions spread, names like Erika Kirk and Bowyer became central to the narrative, not necessarily through confirmed evidence, but through association with the claims being discussed. And once that connection was made, the story gained momentum fast, transforming from a single allegation into a full-scale online investigation driven by curiosity, speculation, and the need for answers that, at least for now, haven't been clearly provided. As the conversation kept growing online, the focus quickly shifted from just the whistleblower to something even bigger, the money itself. Because once financial questions enter the picture, everything becomes more serious. And that's exactly what happened as users began revisiting past events, donation campaigns, and merchandise sales tied to Turning Point USA, trying to piece together whether there were patterns that supported the claims being discussed. And one of the biggest talking points that kept resurfacing was the surge in merchandise sales during emotionally charged moments, especially when supporters were encouraged to buy items connected to the organization's message or legacy. And at first, this looked like normal engagement, people supporting a cause they believed in. But over time, posts began appearing from individuals claiming delayed shipments, missing orders, or issues with customer support. And while isolated complaints aren't unusual for large-scale operations, the volume of similar experiences shared online made people start paying closer attention, because now it wasn't just one or two voices. It was a growing number of supporters saying they felt something wasn't adding up. And that's when speculation about larger financial discrepancies started to spread, including rumors of significant amounts of money being unaccounted for, though it's important to note that these claims remain unverified. But in the world of viral narratives, perception can move just as fast as facts. And once the idea of a money trail entered the discussion, everything connected to leadership decisions, spending, and internal operations began getting re-examined. And naturally, names like Erika Kirk and Bowyer stayed at the center of that conversation, not because of confirmed wrongdoing, but because of their visible roles during the time these questions were being raised, and that visibility made them key figures in the narrative people were building. Also, especially as more former supporters and alleged insiders began hinting that the organization might have been shifting away from its original mission. And whether that shift is real or just a perception amplified by social media is still up for debate. But one thing is clear: the moment money, trust, and leadership all get questioned at the same time, the story doesn't stay quiet. It grows, it spreads, and it pulls more people into trying to figure out what's actually going on behind the scenes. As the financial questions kept building, the internet did what it always does. It zoomed in on personal connections, because once people feel like something bigger might be happening, they start analysing relationships, timelines, and interactions. And that's exactly how Erika Kirk and Tyler Bowyer became even more central to the conversation. Not just as individuals in leadership positions within Turning Point USA, but as a pair whose history suddenly started getting dissected in detail, with clips, interviews, and past statements being pulled up and compared side by side. And what caught people's attention wasn't just that they knew each other. It was that the story of how they knew each other seemed to change depending on the source, because in one version, it was described as a simple introduction through mutual connections. In another, it sounded more strategic, involving early networking and access to influential circles. And then, there were accounts suggesting their connection went back years before certain key events, which made some online users question whether their alignment was purely coincidental or something more deliberate. And while none of these interpretations have been officially confirmed, the inconsistency alone was enough to fuel speculation. Because when timelines don't line up perfectly, people naturally start filling in the gaps with their own theories. And that's exactly what happened here, as discussions began shifting from what happened to was this planned, with some users even suggesting that certain relationships within the organization may have been more calculated than they appeared on the surface. And then came the viral moment, the public interaction that got clipped, reposted, and analyzed frame by frame, with viewers debating whether it was completely normal or subtly revealing something deeper. And once that clip spread, it acted like a spark in an already tense situation, pushing more people to revisit older content and look for patterns they might have missed before. And suddenly, what could have been dismissed as ordinary professional connections started being viewed through a completely different lens, one shaped by suspicion, curiosity, and the growing belief that there might be more happening behind the scenes than what's been publicly explained. Whether that belief is grounded in reality or amplified by online momentum is still unclear. But at this point, the narrative has taken on a life of its own, driven by the internet's ability to connect dots, real or perceived, faster than ever before. What really pushed this story into overdrive wasn't just the rumors or the online theories. It was the timing of what people describe as a sudden power shift. Because moments of transition inside any major organization like Turning Point USA are always sensitive, and when leadership dynamics change quickly, people start watching every move more closely than ever. And according to what's being discussed online, that's exactly what happened when Erika Kirk appeared to step into a more dominant role almost immediately, with Tyler Bowyer remaining active right alongside her, creating what many observers described as a tightly aligned leadership front. And at first, this could have been seen as a natural continuation of operations. Organizations need stability, decisions have to be made. But the speed and tone of the transition is what caught people's attention, because instead of a gradual adjustment period, some claimed it felt like decisions were already mapped out in advance, and with meetings happening quickly, strategies being discussed publicly, and messaging shifting in a way that didn't fully match what supporters were used to. And that's where the conversations started turning more intense, because people began asking whether this was simply strong leadership stepping up in a critical moment, or something that had been in motion behind the scenes long before it became visible to the public. And that question alone was enough to keep fueling speculation, especially when combined with earlier concerns about finances and internal transparency. And then came the reactions from within the broader community, where some supporters defended the changes, saying evolution is necessary for growth, while others expressed discomfort, claiming the organization felt different, less aligned with its original identity, and more focused on branding, visibility, and expansion. And once that divide formed, the narrative became even more polarized because now it wasn't just about what happened, it was about what people believed was happening. And belief, especially online, spreads faster than verified facts. And as more voices joined the discussion, the idea of a coordinated shift, whether real or perceived, became one of the central themes driving the story forward, leaving many watching closely to see whether future developments will clarify the situation or deepen the mystery even further. At this point, the story stopped being just an internal situation and turned into a full-blown internet phenomenon, because once multiple angles, money, leadership, relationships, and a missing whistleblower collide at the same time, the algorithm does the rest. And suddenly, Turning Point USA was trending across platforms with thousands of users breaking down clips, reposting statements, and adding their own interpretations. And what made this phase different was the speed. Because narratives weren't developing over weeks anymore. They were forming in real time, with every new post either reinforcing or challenging what people thought they knew. And names like Erika Kirk and Bowyer were now being mentioned in countless threads, videos, and discussions, often without clear separation between confirmed information and speculation, which is exactly how viral storms grow, because once emotions get involved, especially around trust, loyalty, and money, people stop waiting for official answers and start building their own conclusions. And that's what turned this into something much bigger than a typical controversy, because it wasn't just one claim being debated. It was a combination of unanswered questions stacking on top of each other, creating a narrative that felt complex, layered, and unresolved. And as more creators jumped in, each adding their own perspective, the story began to evolve into multiple versions depending on who you were listening to, with some framing it as a misunderstanding blown out of proportion, while others treated it like a major exposure of something deeper. And in the middle of all that noise, one thing remained consistent: the lack of clear, unified answers, which only kept the conversation alive longer, because in the digital age, silence or delayed responses often create more speculation than resolution. And that's why this story didn't fade quickly like many others. It stayed active, growing with every repost, every reaction, and every new theory, turning what started as a single claim into a viral situation that now has millions watching, waiting, and trying to figure out what's actually real and what's simply the result of the internet doing what it does best: amplifying uncertainty into a global conversation. Now, here's where things get even more intense, because when a story reaches this level, the biggest question isn't just what happened, it's what's actually real. And that line has become extremely blurred in everything surrounding Turning Point USA, because on one side, you have confirmed reality, an organization with massive influence, public figures like Erika Kirk and Bowyer in visible roles, and a large supporter base actively engaged. And on the other side, you have a fast-growing collection of claims, theories, and interpretations that haven't been officially verified but continue to spread because they feel connected. And that's the key word here: feel. Because in viral situations, perception often becomes stronger than proof. And once people start believing there's a hidden layer to a story, every detail begins to look like evidence. Every silence looks intentional, and every coincidence starts to feel like part of a bigger plan. And that's exactly what's happening now, because some are treating this as a serious situation that deserves deeper investigation, while others see it as a mix of speculation and online amplification that's grown beyond what the actual facts support. And the truth is, without clear confirmations, both sides continue to exist at the same time, feeding off each other and keeping the story alive. And that's why the biggest factor moving forward isn't what's already been said. It's what happens next. Because if more insiders speak out, if documentation surfaces, or if official responses directly address the claims, the narrative could shift dramatically in either direction. But if things remain unclear, the speculation will only continue to grow, because the internet rarely lets unanswered questions stay quiet, especially when the story involves power, money, and influence. And right now, that's exactly where this stands. A situation filled with attention, divided opinions, and a future that could either bring clarity or push the mystery even deeper depending on what unfolds next. And now it all comes down to you. Because at this point, this story isn't just about Turning Point USA or the names being discussed like Erika Kirk and Bowyer. It's about how you see it, because depending on who you ask, this is either a misunderstood situation that got blown up by the internet, or it's something much deeper that hasn't fully come out yet. And that's exactly why this conversation isn't slowing down. It's only getting bigger, with more people jumping in, more clips resurfacing, and more opinions forming every single day. And the real question is, where do you stand after hearing all of this? Do you think this is just online speculation stacking on top of coincidence? Or do you believe there are still missing pieces that haven't been revealed yet? Because one thing is clear, this story is far from over. And the next update, whenever it drops, could change everything people think they know right now. So drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your perspective matters more than ever on this one. Hit like if you want more deep breakdowns like this. Subscribe so you don't miss the next part when new details come out. And most importantly, share this video with someone who needs to see it, because the more people paying attention, the harder it is for any story, no matter how big, to stay hidden. And now I want to hear from you, because this isn't just another story scrolling past your feed. This is one of those situations where people are split right down the middle. And your opinion actually matters. Do you think everything happening around Turning Point USA is just internet noise getting out of control? Or do you believe there's something deeper that hasn't fully come out yet involving names like Erika Kirk and Bowyer? Because the truth is, stories like this don't just disappear. They either fade out, or they explode even bigger once new details hit. And right now, it feels like we're right in the middle of that moment where anything could happen next. So don't just watch and scroll. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now, because I'm reading everything. And I want to know exactly where you stand on this. Hit that like button. If you want more real breakdowns like this with no filter, subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because if new info drops, you already know we're covering it first. And share this video with someone who needs to see it, because the more people paying attention, the harder it is for any story to stay in the dark. Stay locked in, because this story, it's far from over.